When it's all said and done and history is written, we'll have learned a lot of things about the last few years, including that the Biden administration had no clue what to do on energy policy, and that lack of foresight when it comes to such a vital strategic interest like energy will prove pretty costly. I mean, when he talks about Armageddon, he's not kidding. He's not kidding, because we will have problems economically, militarily, everything. And it all comes back to energy. This is why you need to be self-sufficient in something like this. It's getting worse too. The rhetoric that you're now hearing is increasingly worse, more problematic, and poor Europe, they've learned this the hard way. You'd think somebody over here could figure it out, but maybe I'm giving them too much credit for actually having any brain power at all. Welcome back to the show. So good to have you here. If you haven't, do me the favor, go over to Apple iTunes, subscribe to the podcast there on Apple iTunes. It is so critical. Tell all your friends. Do the same over at Spotify. Give it 5 stars. It's important because that's how we get this message out. And there's a message here that I need to deliver, which is very grounded in reality, in that we need to protect ourselves, our economy, and our future. And there are things that could be done and should be done to do this. Portions of today's program are brought to you by Legacy Precious Metals. There's never been a better time to consider an investment in something like precious metals. Certainly diversification is so critical right now. You can learn more about this by going to legacypminvestments.com and downloading their free investment guide. Again, that's at legacypminvestments.com. We'll talk a little bit more about it later in the program. But right now we're looking at oil that could be touching $100 a barrel this year. A new study by Capital Economics, which specializes in oil, they have concluded that. It's something I've said actually for quite some time. We have seen oil sort of level off recently, but I suspect that's pretty short-lived given what the Saudis just did, and given, of course, the winter that we're going into with the increasingly lacking supply there overseas in Europe. The expectation is $6 a gallon here nationwide in the U.S., with some states possibly looking at $8. And I'm talking about states like California that have so much in the way of additional taxation. I mean, it's amazing because so many people were trying to say, hey, California is a model for the rest of the U.S. That's exactly how everybody else should be. I don't think so. Not when you guys are looking at the highest energy prices of all. But all of this really comes back to one thing. No one in Washington, D.C., including our Secretary of Energy, Jennifer Granholm, no one's actually thinking about what the future for energy is. They're so stuck on this green stuff that they can't manage this sort of interim. And all of these kinds of things, when they happen, have to account for what happens in the interim. Now, I get it, right? If it's market-based, then the market will sort of dictate that, and there will be an automatic transition. Look at what happened to Zoom, right? The onset of Zoom and people being able to communicate via their computers during the aftermath of March 2020, that was market-based. It was driven from consumer need. But in this case, you're not talking about consumer need, but rather the desire on behalf of the government. And that's where it starts getting pretty darn tricky, but they don't have a plan. That's what you need to know. First and foremost, here is our Secretary of Energy talking to my friend Tom Keene on a network I used to work for, Bloomberg Television, and she's being asked what exactly her energy plan is, and you need to hear her response.
In Sturgis, Michigan, it is $2.89 a gallon. I guess that's better than in California. What is the Granholm plan to increase oil production in America?
Oh my God. That is hilarious. Would that I had the magic wand on this. As you know, of course, oil is a global market. It is controlled by a cartel. That cartel is called OPEC, and they made a decision yesterday that they were not going to increase beyond what they were already planning.
So she laughs. The answer is to laugh when you're being asked, your energy secretary, what your energy plan is, and to say, well, I have no control over it because it's all OPEC. Whoa. I mean, wow. Do they think we're that stupid? I'll tell you, Tom Keene's not. He's not stupid. And most of those Bloomberg viewers, Mike Bloomberg never liked it, but it was often referred to as the Billionaires Network because a lot of billionaires would tune in. They wanted to know what markets were doing, and it's a pretty sophisticated place. Again, I worked there many years myself. Actually, my first job was actually at Bloomberg. I think I'm the only person in Bloomberg's history to have worked there twice, but later went back, ran all their political coverage, did the market close program there for 2 years, Street Smart with Trish Regan. And I can tell you, people are hungry. People are hungry for an energy policy. This was actually something that was, this Jennifer Granholm interview was actually done almost a year ago. So a year ago, they didn't have a policy. They still don't have a policy today. And instead, they're making this push away from fossil fuels at a time when our country really isn't ready for it. Listen to Bernie Sanders just last week here.
But today, I beg of my colleagues that at this moment, when the future of the world is literally at stake, that at this moment we have the courage to stand up to the fossil fuel industry and to tell them and the politicians that they sponsor that the future of the planet is more important than their short-term profits.
Okay, so that's the theme here, right? The future of the planet is more important. So, okay, let's go with that for a minute. Let's just take them at their word and not debate any of that. But if that were the case, then wouldn't you actually want to put more programs in place to say maybe limit some of those private jets? Like, is it really appropriate that John Kerry go up to accept a climate change award in Iceland on his private jet? I mean, that one really takes the cake, right?
I understand that you came here with a private jet. Is that an environmental way to travel?
If you offset your carbon, it's the only choice for somebody like me who is traveling the world to win this battle. I negotiated the Paris Accords for the United States. I've been involved in this fight for years.
And in other words, I'm a big freaking deal, so therefore I get to travel by private jet. Unlike you people over there. No, not happening for you. I'm important, right? That's why I get to go by private jet. You see, again, the total hypocrisy. It's really rather disgusting, the hypocrisy that goes on here. It's okay for me to do this, just not for the rest of you. So we need a better solution than that, and we need real solutions. We actually need an energy policy. We don't need an energy secretary that actually laughs when a pretty substantive, thoughtful journalist over at Bloomberg Television asks her, hey, what's your energy plan? The answer is not to laugh. Meanwhile, it might be helpful if all of these guys took a listen to Larry Summers, former Treasury Secretary under Bill Clinton, so not exactly a conservative, who has this to say about fossil fuel energy.
And that means we need to recognize that whether the issue is energy security or whether the issue is climate, natural gas, despite being a hydrocarbon, is a good thing, not a bad thing. And the more of it we produce, the better we're going to be.
Because the more independent we're going to be. Okay, that's the reality here. When you talk about the world disintegrating as Bernie Sanders does, yeah, that's a possibility if you don't have a world to protect because you haven't figured out how to actually help your people in the interim. What's going to happen, do you think, to Europe as a result of no longer having their nat gas pipeline there to Russia? I mean, that's a big deal. Why would they have ever made themselves dependent? Right now, increasingly, it looks like we might become more dependent on Venezuela. Chevron, my sources tell me, looks like it may be able to open up production there. This is a way to help mitigate what's going on there with OPEC. Okay, fine. But what are we doing? What are we doing here in the United States of America? The answer is nothing. The answer is nothing because they're too darn afraid of the AOCs and the Bernie Sanders of the world to actually do what is needed to be done to protect us in the here and now. And instead, we get this nonsense from the president out there just a couple days ago talking about his Inflation Reduction Act and how much money he's giving to green energy and how that's going to solve it all.
You know, I wrote and then signed into law the Inflation Reduction Act. They used to call it, in the press, poor people have to follow me all over the country. We heard me say it before. It used to be called Build Back Better, but we got almost all of it. That Inflation Reduction Act did a lot of things. It had just a short amount of money, $368 billion for the climate, which is it did a whole range of.
Oh, yeah. 360 some odd billion for the climate. That's going to really reduce energy prices here at home. Here's the deal. People don't want to invest in the traditional energy sector here in the United States of America for a reason right now, because they know that Joe Biden is going to be very hostile towards their investment. What do you think this ESG, environmental, social governance stuff is all about? They rate things green, yellow, red in terms of whether pension funds can actually put their money into these things. And that's all orchestrated to try and basically turn off this traditional energy. Well, in doing so, you make yourself more reliant and more dependent on all these countries that you don't want to be reliant and dependent on. I mean, heck, he didn't want to have to go over there to Saudi Arabia to say hello to MBS, especially after the Khashoggi stuff. This is something that Joe Biden and the Democrats didn't want to have to do, but they did. He went and gave the little fist bump, and now he's angry. He's angry that the Saudis are turning off that oil. Well, maybe you ought to have, now I'm going on a limb. Maybe you just ought to have a solution, right? Like, is anybody playing chess instead of checkers? In a game of chess, you're thinking through what happens next. What are the next moves that could actually transpire? And I don't even want to think about them because they're so bad. But this is what we are supposed to be getting from our lawmakers and our leaders. We're not getting it. Hence all the inflation. And a quick shout out again to my friends over at Legacy Precious Metals, because they care about this inflation like I do. They want to make sure that you're shielded from it. They want to make sure that you are able to protect the value of your dollars, your purchasing power in the future. So go to legacypminvestments.com, check them out, look at downloading their link. They've got a free guide to help you figure out this mess that we're in right now. And I promise you, if you go to trishintel.com, you can get an exclusive invite for the next discussion I have on this entire topic, in which you can participate live, ask questions live. That's exactly what we did. I am going to give you the entire podcast at some point with so many of you asking those questions. The questions came in live a little bit later because, you know, me and technology, it took me a little bit to figure out how to work with the producers to get all those questions in live, but we got them, and it means it's going to be bigger and better for next time. So go to trishintel.com so that you can secure your invite. Go to legacypminvestments.com today to get your free investing guide so you'll be prepared for that discussion. But we're looking at inflation into everything right now. Of course, why? Because of this energy crisis. Energy crisis, it is unlike anything we've seen since the 1970s. I mean, you got to go back quite a ways, 40 years to see anything like this. Thank you so much, Joe Biden. Thank you so much, Jerome Powell. I'm not going to try to get too angry with you, because I do find it very frustrating that people were so short-sighted. So one guy to help me deal with some of my frustrations, he's right here on my lap again today. This is Fluffy. You've probably met him by now, and Fluffy is a big part of my life. He hangs out with me in the studio all the time, sometimes on that chair behind me, sometimes on the floor. Anyway, he is he's a very calming influence when I get a little too angry about this stuff. He's a little bit shy, so sorry he's not looking at the camera right now. We'll do it another time. I think maybe the lights and stuff can get. What do you think, honey? Do you want to turn around? Maybe not. But anyway, he loves rough greens. It's a new supplement that I found for his food, and he suddenly kind of like wants to eat again. And that's so important to me as his mommy, right? To make sure that he's eating the things that are healthy for him. Rough greens, again, is a supplement. You don't have to change your food. You just add it. You sprinkle it onto the food that your dog already eats, and you can ensure that you get all those nutrients, all those essential vitamins, all those essential minerals, all those antioxidants, the digestive enzymes, everything that your dog needs to have a really long and healthy life. So I'm so proud of giving him this supplement. I'm so proud of him in general, right? Like anything he does, he's just kind of the be all end all dog. I love hearing from you guys. If you have any dog pictures, do send them my way, because I love looking at them, and I always show them to my kids. I think having a dog is just such a great thing. I never grew up with one, and it's been a game changer. It really has. And I want to make sure he's well and he's doing well. So when I met Dr. Dennis Black, naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black, and he told me about this supplement. I keep wanting to say food, but it's not food because he has his food and you just sprinkle this on it. And by the way, he'll love his food. Trust me, this guy loves this stuff. So suddenly his food tastes much, much better. It's that secret special sauce, or as I like to call it, the hot sauce that he gets on the Cholula or the Texas Pete's. Anyway, he loves it, and you can love it as a proud pet owner because you know your dog is getting exactly what he needs for his nutrients. So I encourage you today to go check it out. Go check it out, right, baby? At roughgreens.com. Dr. Black is offering a free Jumpstart trial bag. All you have to do is cover the shipping costs. So go to roughgreens.com. That's RUFF, get it? Rough, RUFF greens.com. I leave you with that as we think about these sort of crazy and very curious times. There's a lot at stake and a lot that we need to be prepared for. And so, here we go. There we go. Now we can see a fluff. Now we can see it. And I think that we've got to be prepared. I encourage you to download this entire podcast on Apple iTunes and on Spotify. Subscribe to it. It really matters when you do that. And we're going to keep talking. We're going to talk tomorrow some more. And we've got to figure out sort of how you manage through this. And we've got to hope that more and more Americans pay attention to these issues that are so critical and so important right now for our future and our economy. I will see you tomorrow. In the meantime, go to my website, trishintel.com.